Oh, one of our Boris killer topics is coming back, because alleged attacks by Conservative MP Chris Pincher led to the resignation of Prime Minister Boris Johnson a year ago. He had promoted the party colleague despite older accusations. And the British MP Chris Pincher, who is said to have drunkenly groped two men and was suspended as a result, now wants to give up his mandate. The PA news agency reported on this on Thursday. He had previously failed in an appeal against his 8-week suspension. I do not want the people in my constituency to be exposed to further uncertainty and have therefore made preparations to resign and leave the House of Commons, said Pincher. The politician from the ruling Conservative Party is accused of harassment. And the Pincher affair was one of the main reasons for Prime Minister Boris Johnson's resignation around a year ago. The head of government at the time had elevated his party colleague to an important parliamentary position, even though he knew of older similar allegations against Pincher. Johnson denied this several times, but then had to admit it. Pincher most recently sat as an independent member of the House of Commons. A parliamentary committee decided in July that he had behaved completely inappropriately, abused his office, and seriously damaged the reputation of Parliament. Pincher then tried to challenge his suspension and avoid a by-election in his constituency, but without success. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Conservatives now face a test in another constituency. Boris Johnson resigned as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom on July 7th in 2022 after a series of scandals and controversies. The immediate trigger for his resignation was the resignation of Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and Sajid Javid, the Health Secretary, on July 5th. These resignations were followed by a wave of resignations from other ministers and government officials. But there were a number of reasons for Johnson's downfall. One, of course, was the Partygate scandal, in which it was revealed that Johnson and other government officials had attended parties during the COVID-19 lockdown. This scandal damaged Johnson's reputation for what he always called honesty and integrity. Another reason for Johnson's resignation was this Pincher scandal. And Chris Pincher, this Conservative MP at the time, was accused of groping two men, and Johnson was initially said to have been unaware of the allegations against Pincher, but it later emerged that he had been aware of them and still promoted Pincher to that position I mentioned earlier. And this revelation further damaged Johnson's reputation. And in addition to these scandals, Johnson was also criticized for his handling of the economy and the cost of living crisis. And inflation in the UK is at a 40-year high, and many people are struggling to make ends meet. And Johnson's government was also accused of being incompetent and lacking in focus. And in the end, Johnson was unable to withstand the pressure of the scandals and the criticisms of his government. He resigned as Prime Minister, but he remained in office until the next one was chosen. And he also remained in the House of Commons until he had to resign there as well. You will remember the whole thing with the witch hunt, as he called it, and the investigations into the Partygate scandals. But Partygate was one thing, and he lied to Parliament several times about this, but this Pincher affair for many people was much worse than Partygate scandals. And that, well, in this case, he lied to Parliament as well, because he said for a long time he didn't know when he promoted him, and he did know. And about the competence part, we don't even have to talk. I mean, you remember his Peppa Pig speech, for example. That was kind of an incident, but it was a great example that really was a kind of a show for the competence of that government. But in the end, a number of Conservative MPs had called him to resign, and many more were prepared to do so if he did not step down voluntarily. And in the end, the combination of all those factors led to Boris Johnson's resignation as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And he's out of Parliament as well. But at the moment there are some interesting rumours floating around. Boris Johnson might run for Mayor of London again in 2024. Well, it's still too early to say for sure whether Boris Johnson will run for Mayor of London again in 2024. He has not yet made a decision, as we know, and there are a number of factors that could influence his decision. And one factor is his popularity in London. Johnson was indeed a popular mayor and he won re-election in 2016. However, his popularity has declined since then and he is now seen as a more divisive figure. Another factor, of course, is the political landscape in London. The Labour Party currently controls the mayoralty and they are likely to be the main challenger to Johnson if he does run. The Labour Party has a strong base of support in London and they are likely to be able to mount a strong campaign against Johnson if he does this. And finally, Johnson will need to decide whether he wants to return to frontline politics. He has said that he's enjoying his time out of office and he may not be willing to put himself through the rigors of a mayoral campaign again. If Johnson does decide to run for Mayor of London again, he will face an uphill battle and he will need to rebuild his popularity in London and he will need to convince voters that he is the best person to lead the city. But then probably another topic will be that Johnson invented ULIS and not Sadiq Khan, who now got under a lot of pressure because of this. And of course, we must not forget, a lot of people are expecting Johnson to try to get back into Parliament in the general election in 2024. But I thought this rumor about becoming mayor again quite intriguing. So I wanted to bring it up in one of my videos, of course, especially in one where I had to talk about Boris Johnson anyway. So what do you think? Do we have to expect Boris Johnson campaigning in London again? If you want to know something else about UK politics, Brexit or the EU, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.